When she was 5 years old, Adiris, the youngest of a family of 7, was left on the brick-red burning steps of the Temple of Purgation at the Century of Babylon. To process her shock and sorrow, she held on to the belief that the gods had a plan for her. Her new life was of quiet servitude. She would tend the gardens, prepare ceremonial meals, and polish ceremonial incense burners. At night, she would pray for a sign that would reveal her purpose. When she came of age, she attended the high-ranking priests during the yearly worshipping of the sea goat, the god of water and creation. Swinging a censer down the great hypostyled hall, she cast thick black fumes that reached the cold towering stone pillars before dissipating. Her worries lifted, and the resulting bliss made her feel closer to the gods than ever. She worked herself to the bone each day that followed, fulfilling her duties while taking on new ones as she aided the priests during purification rituals. The priests were more and more in need of assistance. Cleansings were being performed daily to answer the demand of the outside high temple walls, where a catastrophic plague had resurfaced. Within months, the priests contracted the disease. It did not take long before they became too weak to perform any kind of ritual. Adiris, having assisted many purification rituals, was the only one able to carry on. The swelling panic had to be contained, even if by a novice. Anxious before her first ceremony, Adiris visited the priest's sanctuary chamber. When she lit the candles, she noticed a narrow opening at the back. Sliding through the gap, she reached a crypt hidden under the sanctuary. The chamber was bare except for the golden statue of a woman who stood with outstretched hands, her fingers covered in jewels. It was the sign Adiris had been waiting for. The great hall was packed with followers who bowed down as Adiris entered. She strolled to the brick altar and grabbed a ceremonial dagger forged in silver, her ruby ring fingers wrapping around the blade like claws. The sudden display of luxury intrigued the followers, who were struck already by her youth and beauty. As she began reciting the epic of creation, a woman at the back swooned and collapsed. Adiris rushed to her and noticed the black blisters covering her feet. Without hesitation, Adiris grabbed her sacred blade and swung it at her own foot, severing a toe. Then she offered the bloodied part to the gods, asking them to protect the woman. A silence fell over the followers, who revered Adiris as their new priestess. Tales of her wealth, beauty, and devotion began to spread across the city as quickly as the disease. Soon, Adiris' followers called her the High Priestess of Babylon. But her faith was tried when she showed the first signs of infection. Her cough became a mix of phlegm and blood, her neck erupted in abscesses, and her four-toed foot darkened. Ashamed of her condition, she began wearing a veiled headpiece and carried a censer that masked the rancid smell of sick that clung to her skin. Hoping to be saved, she kept performing the rituals, offering blessed water and food to her followers. But no ritual could save her. In a desperate attempt to appease the gods, Adiris banished herself from the city. She traveled north with a few followers, venturing through the cold woodlands, until it was no longer possible to walk. They camped in a damp cave, where Adiris lay in a pool of vomit. Her foot, which had turned black, was so swollen she could not go any further. Her followers and she realized the truth in that cave. They were all infected with the plague. Kneeling among her retching followers, Adiris made one last prayer. The black fumes of incense rose into the damp air before being wiped off by a cold breeze. Neither the body of Adiris nor those of her followers were ever found. Many told tales of her return, but no one truly knew what fate had befallen the High Priestess of Babylon. Jane Romero was the daughter of a famous actress, Loretta Lawrence, of whom she had no memory. Her parents had separated when she was still a baby, mainly since her mother was often away filming. Jane was raised by her father, a struggling visual artist. She grew up torn between resenting her mother's absence from her life and admiring her presence on screen. As a teenager, Jane secretly wished to emulate her mother's talent. She would direct and perform in plays, audition for TV commercials, and help her father at his studio. During her senior year, she entered a national oratory contest and won first prize. Her performance attracted the attention of a radio station that contacted her for an interview. During the live show, her natural charm and repartee impressed the staff, who offered her a part-time job at the station. After graduating college in communication, she quit her job at the station to work for a trendy variety show, but her frank delivery and ad-libs were not appreciated by the show's executives, who fired her after 5 months. Desperate for another opportunity, Jane pitched a show at the radio station she used to work at, only to be turned down, her proposal being too risky. 4 months later, she received a phone call from a producer who had seen her reruns of the show. He was looking for a co-host to spark up the failing show Quick Talk. Live television meant long hours, a low salary, and no stability, but it also offered a platform to broadcast her views. She disputed the cruel, inflammatory tone of Quick Talk and pushed for a relatable coverage of personal issues. Her honest delivery resonated with her audience, and within weeks, the show's viewership was steadily growing. After 2 years, she launched a full-hour segment called The Jane Romero Show, which was broadcast nationally and covered taboo topics, including her personal struggle with abandonment. Her show broke records, and her initials, JR, became synonymous with products ranging from beauty creams to fashion accessories. But Jane needed more. She wanted others to follow in her footsteps. She published a memoir that covered her childhood with an absent mother. Her book was an instant bestseller, but was reviewed harshly. Critics called it a serving of sad anecdotes seasoned with bland generic self-help tips. Jane took this criticism to heart, since despite her success, a voice in the back of her mind was starting to doubt her achievements. Her success also generated an increasingly demanding schedule and a growing pressure to entertain constantly. During a particular tense week, she canned an episode and instead launched a 2-hour-long special on divorce. Her stress peaked when she learned that her mother had agreed to star in her show. Jane put on a brave face and began the show. Most of it went without a hitch, but when her mother walked on set, smiling warmly at the audience, Jane's stomach lurched unpleasantly. She was consumed by a violent envy that had been festering, yet she carried on with a strained smile until Loretta interrupted her, saying that they were not actually related. The interview went haywire after that. After the show, Jane was driving to her father's house in New Jersey. She needed to talk things over with him. She had not been feeling like herself lately. She turned on the freeway along the coast to avoid major congestion and popped some painkillers to numb the throbbing pain in her temples, which had been nagging her all day. Then she started to relax and turn on the radio. Classical music was playing. The drive was slow. Black ice covered the highway, which was packed with cars on their way back home. Night fell. A darkness began to blur the corners of her vision and turned the headlights into swirls of red. Jane blinked to sharpen their outlines, but each time she closed her eyes, her eyelids became heavier and heavier until they remained shut for a moment too long. The following morning, authorities were fishing out Jane's car from the water. Despite leading a meticulous search for weeks, they were unable to retrieve her body. The airing and production of the Jane Romero Show was suspended until after her funeral, which both her father and mother attended. As the public grieved for Jane, there was a surge of orders for JR Productions, and all of her episodes were re-released a month later, with an opening credit that wished her eternal peace. And that ends yet another episode of History Behind the Horror. If you enjoyed yourself here tonight and you would love to see more History Behind the Horror of Dead by Daylight on this channel very soon, make sure you guys like and share the video. It lets me know that you guys will love to see more Dead by Daylight very soon. And make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you stay up to date when a new video is released. Also, if you enjoyed the series on this channel called Friday Night Frights, make sure you guys go subscribe to our brand new channel called HBTH Gaming. We post horror games over there just about every day and nothing but horror. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and as always, I hope to see you in our next episode of History Behind the Horror.